Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining us today is our only dietitian because she's the best, at least as far as we know. It's Andrea Miller. Andrea, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great, and you're bringing us some very important things. I've listened to a lot of stuff, and I've even tried a lot of the recipes that you have, but today's one like hits it on the head, and that is fueling the family meals. And I like this topic for many reasons, and we had a chance to talk a little bit about this before we started this interview. But there's so much pressure around dinner time and that family meal. So today we're going to break it down, and you're going to tell us how to take the pressure out of doing this and get everybody involved in it, which I think is so important, especially with the kiddos trying to, I think parents battle they're not going to eat dinner tonight, or they're going to, there are so many things, and I'm learning as a parent, and you're a parent and have to know all this stuff. So tell us, what do you got here for us?
Yeah. So the first thing I really like to remind people and really encourage people is to keep things simple. So remember that unless somebody medically has an issue with a food that their body rejects it, like a food allergy, for instance, there aren't really foods we have to exclude. So remember that if we pick any food from a food group, it has nutrition in it. Okay. So if you look at the 5 food groups and we pick something from that group or any of the groups, it's going to have nutrition in it. So if we can keep it at that basic level and not feel like we have to buy specific foods or buy specific brands or certain, be very specific in those categories, that can help take off some of the pressure where we're just taking a step back and making it more general, choosing from the food groups. We get balance and variety from those food groups. Then there's a lot less of a chance of going excessive in one or the other. And most importantly, if we're not excluding food groups, we can avoid what's called nutrient gaps. So anytime we get too picky and choosy with our foods and start taking out whole categories, we start to lose all those nutrients that come from that category. So I really encourage people to think more broadly and bring back the enjoyment with food and bring back the joy with getting together, creating meals together, sitting down and eating together.
Yeah, and it takes a lot. I mean, it really takes a lot. But if you really think of it at that level and bringing it down a little bit, that should draw some of that worry off the parents. Specifically going into just the choices of food and trying to hit, you still got to put something together each and every night, and you just don't want to bust out the chicken nuggets and the ketchup and say, here you go. But, if you're going to look and choose, what would you recommend to include in some of those choices?
Sure. So at a broad level, I encourage people to look at eating or kind of picking a combination of 3 to 5 of the different food groups. So if you're looking at recipes, what sounds good to you? What meals does your family enjoy? Kind of starting there. We have a lot of recipes online that are, one pot meals that include 2 or 3 different or 3 or more different food groups right in a skillet or in the pot. Sheet pan meals are nice to put them all together. We have an example for you for an Italian lasagna skillet where everything kind of goes in the pot. And we're getting those different food groups at that time. So again, thinking broadly, 3 to 5 different food groups and putting them together. So that might be very simply just, combining different foods together on a plate, or it might be in a recipe. You see those 3 or more different food groups represented, and just, rest assured that, okay, now you're creating and offering a balanced meal.
Question on the specific kiddos. So we get that balanced meal, we're so excited to sit down. Maybe one kid likes it, the other kid hates it, or just is throwing up but still sitting together regardless of it, as you say, and you mentioned off the top here, really brings that piece together. And why is that? And why is that help kids in the future and help parents too, kind of bring this family piece together and make it fun?
Right, right. And that's the worst part too, is you know, put all this time and energy in the shopping and preparing and cooking, and then you might have one or more, could be even an adult that refuses the meal. So my first recommendation is to really lower your expectations. Kind of keep it pretty neutral at a meal. If a family member doesn't want it, they don't have to eat it. If they only want a portion of it, that's fine. So if we kind of keep our reactions kind of neutral and keep it more about just enjoying and sitting together as a family, that can help. The more stress we add, the more kind of forcing of behaviors we add at mealtime, it kind of upsets our relationship with food. And then we start getting negative feelings around food. So the simple act of sitting together and enjoying a meal, and keep in mind, a family could be all different, you know, it could look very differently depending on the household. So we just mean kind of sitting and eating together, and just kind of take the pressure off and just let things be. I know that's really hard to do, but it's there, you provided it. Perhaps the fact that it was done together, you may have a little bit more engagement and a little bit more involvement in the meal, but just kind of take the pressure off and let it be and enjoy it.
As my little one's calling me for the help of making dinner tonight, getting those kids to help out
Yes.
with the meal, what would you say some of the jobs could be, depending on the different age groups?
Yes. So my biggest suggestion first is to stage. Take a few, have the adult or even an older child take a little time in advance to kind of stage the meal or stage the recipe. And you kind of know your kids. So if you feel that they could tear up, you know, fresh spinach, or they could, you know, layer this lasagna skillet that we're referencing, kind of stage it so it's ready to go. Because most people, most kids in particular, do well if they can just start doing when they see something, versus waiting for you to kind of dig in the drawers and get out the spatula and get out the spoon and have everything kind of staged, almost as if you're going to do a cooking show. And I know that it doesn't have to be perfect, so I don't want it to sound like a lot of work, but kind of stage it so then they're just assembling or doing. And then pay attention to what you feel comfortable with. In this recipe, for instance, you could have smaller kids breaking up the lasagna noodles, breaking up the fresh basil, those kinds of things. And then older kids kind of doing the stirring and the mixing and that kind of thing.
And do you think there's more buy-in when you do that from the kids, even husband, wife, or girlfriend,
Yes.
boyfriend, or whatever the combination to make it work?
Yeah, even adults, as you mentioned. I mean, the more that we're involved in what we're going to be eating, it is more likely that we're going to at least try it. So I do encourage kids and adults to even try some of the items, as long as they're safe, you know, without being cooked. But if they're curious about what fresh basil tastes like, try it. If you're curious about what fresh mozzarella tastes like, try it, you know. So all of that kind of curiosity really helps with getting engaged with the meal and more chance that they're going to try it.
Yeah, I would think so. Real quick on this lasagna, why is this such a great example of an easy meal? And you kind of crisscrossed it here, but as you go through it, why does this work on so many levels for that wholesome meal, if you will?
Sure. So nutritionally, it has all the parts, right? It has carbohydrate, it has protein, it has fat. It's representing at least 3 different food groups. So all those other nutrients come into play as well. It's also in one pot, so you have less to wash. There's also some shortcuts in there too. So using no boiled noodles helps. So you have one less thing to do or prepare, less cleanup. And then it kind of all comes together. And then when it comes out of the oven, it's like, oh, wow, like, whoa, we all created this. This is really cool. The other nice thing too is it works well for leftovers. So it's one of those meals that if everyone doesn't finish it, or if they don't want to eat it right away, you can take it out again and reheat it later in the day or the next day.
There's where I like it the most.
Yes.
Leftovers.
Yes.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much. Great tips here again. And let's make that family meal easy, fun, and healthy when we can. Andrea, thank you so much. If people want to learn more, where can they find you?
Sure. So we have the link to directly connect with me on our virtual platform, as well as my direct email and direct customer phone line.
All right, Andrea Miller from Hy-Vee. Thank you so much for your time as always. Stay safe out there, and we'll check in with you next month.
Sounds great.
All right, so take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.